Hey everyone, happy Sunday. I am here. We are going to go ahead and start this week. We're going to stitch up our appliques and our shaker designs this week. So we're going to start out. The first thing we're going to do this week is we're going to do the strawberry bag tags and applique. And we are going to walk through everything step by step. So I actually have the design on my hoop ready to go, but I wanted to talk really quickly about applique scissors. So to get really good results on an applique, super important that you have applique scissors. They're a lot smaller. They are curved, if you can see there. There's a bunch of different kinds. So these are duckbills. You'll see that one side here is shaped like a duckbill. So this is a type, or you can just get smaller ones like these that are curved to get into small little areas. Hey, Sherry. And then these here. These are my all-time favorite applique scissors. They are 5-inch Kai applique scissors. I can link those, but they're also on my Amazon storefront too. They do kind of dull over time. Really, any scissor will, and there's not a really good way to sharpen these up. So I kind of buy them every 6 months or replace them. They're like $17, I think, for a pair. So I've got a bunch of these and various degrees of sharpness kind of scattered around. But make sure before you start applique, you have a good pair of applique scissors, because you're going to have a really hard time cutting small areas of applique with giant shears. So make sure you got some good applique scissors. If you don't have any right now, try to find the smallest pair of scissors that you have that are sharp to get in there. Applique is actually easiest for beginners to start with vinyl. I know it sounds contrary to popular if you think that fabric would be easier, but vinyl is actually the easiest and more forgiving. Fabric sometimes, because you want to try and get really close to that line of stitching, and fabric can sometimes fray. The fix for that is to get yourself something called Heat and Bond Light. Comes in a roll. It's like adhesive with paper on one side, and you take your fabric, you cut it or cut the size that you need, put your fabric on it, and then you're just going to iron it in place, let it cool, and then you just rip this paper off. And what that does is it kind of helps secure the raw edges of the fabric, so when you are using applique scissors, it's not going to fray as much on you. But if this is your first time ever using applique, I would start with vinyl. It's going to be more forgiving for you and easier to work with. If you get too close or if you cut some stitches, it's going to be way better for you. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Mona. I'm kind of hiding behind the camera here. So we have our vinyl cut out for our first project. And again, I am just using, and I forgot to cut a piece. We're going to do the strawberry heart. I'm going to cut another piece of vinyl now. I'm going to use these two vinyls. These are from So Unique Designs. I think this is like the metallic diamond nest, but I'm not sure. It's one from So Unique. Hi, Laura. Let me cut one more piece of vinyl because apparently I can't follow my own directions. Then I'm going to swing you over to the machine and we're going to get started with stitching up the first one. This works. So when on applique designs, you're actually going to have one piece of vinyl that's going to go on first. That's going to be the backing for everything before we start working the applique design. So if you get seasick, turn your eyes away. I'm going to swing you over to the embroidery machine and we're going to go ahead and get started. So close your eyes. All right, let me swing you back down and around this way. There we go. You're right there. It's kind of close, but we're there. All right, so I've got the design loaded on my machine. The first step, like anything else, is going to be placement. This is placement for your overall backing vinyl, not your applique piece yet. So you're going to go ahead and get that on. It doesn't matter what color it's going to be, 'cause it's going to go right on stabilizer, nothing else. Go ahead and get that going and start that placement stitch. And I'm going to get you queued up on my iPad so I can kind of see comments as I'm going too. There I am. I see me. Okay. All right. I am using cutaway stabilizer, but honestly with these you can probably go with tearaway. The satin's not even super dense, but I just use cutaway pretty much on everything. It's just my favorite, but you could use tearaway if you had that too. All right, so we have our placement down. You can see that. So it's right on the stabilizer there. The next step is we're gonna put down our backing vinyl, which is gonna be the overall backing that you're gonna see. Okay, so I just picked white. Pick whatever color you wanna see around the border of your design. And then the next step is gonna be our placement for our first applique piece. Again, the color that you're using does not matter on this. It's going to get covered up. So I just typically use the same color I have in just to save me some thread changes. So it's just going to be a quick stitch around just for that placement. For some reason, the comment keeps disappearing on me. All right, so we have our placement stitches down for our first layer of applique. So on this, it's gonna be that heart, which is the strawberry color. So you'll probably want, pink, red, I don't know, if in a blue strawberry, that's cool too, you do you. But that's what we're going with. I'm gonna use pink and green on this one. So I have my placement down. I'm gonna take my applique vinyl here. I'm gonna use vinyl, just it's easiest. Put that down right over top, load it back up. Again, the color here doesn't really matter so much, but you might want to try to use a contrasting thread for your vinyl. It can kind of be hard to cut really close if you're using the same color thread as your vinyl. So I typically use contrasting here. It's going to be covered anyways when we're done. So you just do whatever easy on your eyes so you can see what's going on. So we got that down. We're going to tack down that first applique piece. I'm afraid if I move you guys down farther, it's gonna that's what I'm afraid of. I'm gonna drop you again. I wish I had a better angle. I really need to get a better tripod. You see my tootsies down there. Hi, Dottie. Hi, Terry. All right, so we've got our first applique piece tacked down. So now we need to cut it. I'm gonna try and do it kind of pull it out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Again, get your sharp scissors, okay? If I can kind of, we're gonna do some finagling here. When I cut my applique pieces, I like to actually, normally I'd cut paper. I'm right-handed, so I would just kind of go around this way. But when I'm cutting applique, I actually like to cut kind of towards my non-dominant hand. I find it gets closer to the stitches without cutting through. It's just an easier technique for me. But give it a try, see what works best for you. Hopefully you can kind of see without me hemming too much in the way here. I'm just gonna get in here and I'm just gonna pull the vinyl a little bit as I'm going, and I'm just gonna trim around. I don't wanna cut those stitches, but I wanna get as close as I can. Kind of turning as I go. This is way easier on a table, but I figured this is the best way to keep the camera in frame here. And you can always go back and clean up any jagged edges you have later. So if once you get this whole piece cut out, you decide I want to get closer in an area, you can go back in and get a little closer. Another thing too, if you're using like a holographic vinyl or something shiny, just be careful you're not like digging it on your scissors. Sometimes it'll scratch the vinyl underneath. Ask me how I know that. And that piece I'm leaving a little long there. I'll come back and clean it up again in a minute when I have a better angle. Just gonna turn all the way around. see, am I on camera here that you can see what's going on? So here I am. I've got a few pieces that I'm gonna kind of go in a little bit, and I'm gonna just kind of clean those up, those little edges. Or maybe I feel like I didn't get as close as I want it to. But honest, this is probably close enough. And you'll notice if you're using fabric and you did not use heat and bond on the back of it, sometimes the fabric will fray a little bit. So just kind of try and clean up any of those like frayed edges you might get with fabric. It's just a little harder to work with until you get more comfortable with appliques. But the heat and bond helps tremendously in cutting those out neatly. A little edge here. And then I'm going to go back in on that little tiny edge there on the tip of that heart there and get that out of there. All right. So here is where we are. So this is our first applique piece. Our next step is now going to put the placement for our second applique piece down. So this will be like our little leaves there at the top. So again, thread color does not matter. Just something you can see in your vinyl so you know where to place your next piece. No, Pierre, I'm not getting a multi-needle. I thought about it, but I want to make sure that not everyone has access to a multi-needle, so I make sure that like whatever designs I do doesn't require multi-needle, so I just stick with the single needle, and I do love my machine, so I'm happy with it. All right, so we have our placement down for our next piece. So that's our little leaves there at the top, and I'm just gonna grab my piece of vinyl that's cut entirely too big, but that's okay. It's better bigger than smaller. So go ahead and lay your next piece over. Make sure you're covering up all those stitches. Put it back on. Again, the thread color here does not matter. It's gonna get covered. Just pick something kind of contrasting so that you can see when you cut those stitches, so it's not too close to that vinyl. All right, so here we are, tacking on that second piece for our leaves. I know, and Pierre, I have sewing machines at this point too. I'm like, I don't even know where I'd put another one. So here is where we are now. We have all our tack down stitches securing that second piece of vinyl for our second applique piece. And we're gonna do the same thing we did on the heart, and we're just gonna cut those out. So kind of go in. Again, I like to hold my scissors to cut away from me. For me, it works better. I don't know the reasoning. Maybe that's how they're meant to be used, but I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't get all of this on camera. I'm trying. Get some of it over here. I'm trying to get as much as I can on camera here. Just kind of turn as you go. And again, this is way easier to table than your machine. I don't recommend doing it at your machine, but this way I'm not making you guys go like back and forth getting seasick as you're cutting all these out. So we're gonna make it work. Again, vinyl is way more forgiving. If you were to accidentally like cut a stitch, it's not going to ruin your entire project. Fabric is a little less forgiving with that. So here is where we are now. I'm good with that. Might get No, I'm happy with that. I try to make my satin widths a little wider on appliques so you're not trying to get it exactly on it. It can be really hard if that satin width is more narrow, so I try to be a little forgiving with the width that I assign the satin that goes around. So if you're not perfect, it will cover that for you. So here we are. And that was the hard part of the whole design. Now we're just, actually I'm gonna get that little piece a little more there. Now all we have to do is finish it just like we did the bookmark, bag tag, we wanna call it, from week 1. So easy peasy. That's an applique. That's it. You just did an applique. Done. All right. So now we're going to go on to the green for the leaves. I'm just kind of eyeballing colors here. I guess I should have picked this stuff out ahead of time, but I did not. I laid by the pool instead. All right, so we've got our green going in for the leaves. What I will say too about appliques, the vinyl that you choose to use makes a huge difference. There are some vinyls that just will not hold up to the satin stitches and it will perforate or tear away from the actual stitching, especially if you get some novelty like custom printed vinyl. Some of that is better than others. So I would do like a quick trial on a quick project that you're doing if you want to use a lot of satin stitches or applique with those, just to make sure it's going to hold up to the stitches for you. I'd hate for you to get to like the end of a 2-hour-long project or something, and then when you're finished, the whole thing is falling apart. So just be mindful of that, especially if you're beginning. Try to stick with just solid color vinyls. Don't get too fancy there. Even some of the like holographic stuff will kind of perforate. It just depends on the quality. And the one thing that I think is great about, so I don't need to keep like touting like Sewing Designs, but she'll actually list out on her website if the vinyl that you're looking at is appropriate for satin stitches and applique, which is fantastic. I've also had really good luck with vinyls for applique from So Hungry Hippie as well. Never an issue with those. So those are kind of my go-tos, but I typically kind of shy away from novelty prints. I haven't had a ton of luck, but to be fair, it's really not my big cup of tea anyway, so I haven't tried a lot of different brands. So I'm not saying it's all bad, I just haven't tried enough of it to say like what's good with novelty prints and what's not. And I would say the same thing if you're getting like faux leather vinyl on Amazon. The quality may not be the same either. Some of it's totally fine. And honestly, I've got some vinyl that I've gotten from there, like cheap packs that I keep and I use for like really simple stitch outs that don't have a lot of heavy satin stitches. The big area that's going around this design is called a satin stitch. And that has a lot of stitches in a small area. So I'll shy away from using those kind of cheaper vinyls on those types of designs and just use them on things like we did the manatee last week. That would have been fine for that. Yeah, so Carol, that's the great thing too about like, you know, using vinyl and stuff, and I try to make it wide enough that if you were to snip a little bit, you're gonna be good. I try to anyways, because I know I'm not perfect and I can't cut perfectly straight all the time, so I try to be mindful of that. We're almost done with our green. I know, Pierre, I keep thinking, so I do need to get a better domestic machine for sewing. I replaced my HG3000, which I loved, and I got this other one, I don't love it. So I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet. All right, so we are on to the red or pink outline there, whatever color you want to use for around the heart. This is where we are. So that satin covered up all of our stitching right there. So as you can see, like we cut close enough, we don't have any edges hanging out. And if you do too, a lot of it's practice too. You'll get closer and be more smooth the more that you do them. So don't panic if this is your first applique and you see a little bit of fraying there. It's okay, you'll get better, I promise. So just kind of keep at it and just keep practicing. Scissors are important, but you'll get there. This is the hard part's done now. All right, so now we're gonna do our last satin around that heart. Oh, that color's fine. I'm kind of winging it here with colors. Down. We're just going to do our satin around that now, around the heart. Oh, there's Michelle. Michelle, I see you peeping in here now. I keep asking questions about your vinyl. And you keep hiding. Thank you, Piper. I try. And you can see my thread covered carpet down there. Just look away from the dirt down there. Oh, hi, Michelle. Were your ears burning? The longest part too is stitching those satins, so it does take a minute. There's a few layers that has to go under it. See, you should be home stitching with me, Michelle. But I was just saying, like, Michelle, you don't really carry any novelty prints that you have for vinyls. I don't really buy them. But do you have any, if the novelty prints you have in vinyl, are they okay for satin stitching? Michelle will be honest too. She'll tell you if it's going to work or not. Oh, Carol, I'm glad to hear that. And that's what, like, I hope with this whole, like, bundle is that we can kind of learn together and get some tips, because some things can seem more intimidating for others. And even if you've done it for a while, hopefully we can kind of share together and be like, hey, this worked for me. And I've learned so much by doing these lives in the past, too, like tips from people that I didn't know. Another thing too, I know I said it a bunch of times before, but slow your machine stitching down, especially on satins. You're going to get way better results stitching at a slower speed than you are like having it cranked up, because there's a lot of stitches in a small area, and if you have the speed really cranked up, it's going to cause more friction, more heat on the stitches, lead to like looser stitching in areas, and some skip stitches too. So slow that down as much as you can. Mine goes down, I think, to 350, and I stitch mostly at 400. So that's why it seems like it takes so long on the machine too, because I just stitch really slow. We all have bad habits, Carol. It's okay. Fast and furious. I know. Michelle, we're gonna turn you to the dark side soon. Kelly and I are gonna get on there. We're gonna convert you. Michelle likes to stitch designs like it's her last design ever at like 20,000 stitches per second. See? Michelle, even Kelly's saying like 600, not 6 bazillion. But we are almost done with this last satin, and it'll be pretty quick. So we're getting through to you, Michelle. Oh, Oh yeah, I don't, so Nancy, I don't really touch any of the other settings on the machine. Like I never touch tension, anything like that. The only things that I do mess with on my machine are the presser foot height if I'm stitching like minky and like thicker stuff, and just the speed. But I don't touch anything else. Like I couldn't tell you what the default setting is for that stuff because I don't mess with them. I'm scared to. So I don't think I'd have room to put your machine anywhere down here. I'm at capacity. All right, so we are done with all the satin stitches. This is where we are. You can see on here. So we've got our greens all covered, our hearts all covered, and now we have to do is put on the little heart seeds and then add our backing, and we're done with it. So I will pop some white in, do those little hearts. Oh, thanks, Michelle. All right, so we're on the white now. And Michelle, I think this is your like metallic diamond dust. Does that look right? Does that sound right? I know I got it from you. It's shiny and it looks like diamond dust. That's all I know. It's Terry, I'm team slow all the way. Let me look at the backing. Is this it, Michelle? Is that greenish? I think so. I know it's from you. Yeah, like, so I went back and forth on getting a multi-needle, but ultimately I didn't for a couple reasons. One, because I wanted to make sure that any designs that I release, like, has been done on a single needle. Not everyone has access to that, so I was trying to make sure that I could check things on a single needle. And number two, I just don't make enough that, like, I have to wait production so much. Like if I stitch something else because I'm testing something of mine or I want to because it seems fun, those are the main reasons that I haven't gotten a multi-needle. So I'm just over here changing colors. All right. So now we're on to the last step, which is just adding our backing. Here is where we are. So a little strawberry heart. So we're just gonna flip that over. Put our backing vinyl down. And honestly, I normally use felt on the back of these. And I just slap it on there and go. But I'm trying to be fancy for these, but I would 100% in real life be using felt on the back of this and not vinyl because felt is way cheaper than vinyl and no one really sees the back. Unless it's going to be like on a kid's book bag where we're getting kind of messy, I would be using felt. All right, so I have tape down. I'm going to pop that back in. And I actually don't need to change threads because I have the white and I'm using a white backing. When you're choosing your thread color, I try to match the background vinyl because it's going to be easier to hide any flaws when you trim. So if you're not a great cutter and you're not totally straight, that's going to help hide that for you too. So I always try and match the color of the vinyl on the outline stitching. Yeah, so the cell layer goes to, it's a 9 by 14 hoop size. And so I was looking at some multiples before, and I ultimately just went with the cell layer. And I'm happy with it, but I just don't know that I'll ever bite the bullet myself and get a multi. But I think if I like production made, or if I was like making for markets or, you know, for shops and things like that, like that would be something I would be a lot more interested in. They had to be little heart seeds. It just made sense. And we're almost done. This is actually only a 13-minute stitch out. So despite the 2 applique areas there, the satin stitching, it was still a pretty quick stitch out. All right, that's it. We are done with that. So I will pop that off. There is the front. There is the back. I'm going to set this to the side for now, and we're going to work on our shaker design next before I cut this out. So if you are stitching along with us, just set that aside for now, and we can trim later. But let's go ahead and move on to our next piece, which is going to have 3 areas of applique to cut out, 2 different applique colors, and then we'll have the shaker on top. So it's kind of combining all that. So let's load our little candy. All right, so before we get started with this, with the shakers, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have clear vinyl. You can even have like glitter clear vinyl, doesn't matter, just as long as you can see through it in some way. You'll see, and I know we talked about when we did the card cases and luggage tags last week, you can use the same vinyl you used last week. Just make sure whatever vinyl you're using, like the card cases, is either 12 gauge or no thinner than 12 gauge. It can be thicker, that's okay. And then no thinner than, if you're buying online, it'll say 3 millimeters. So those are the smallest weights you want to get for these. So Terry, I'm using cutaway just because I use cutaway on everything, but you could probably get away with tearaway on these too, just fine. All right, so I'm gonna put a contrasting color in just for the placement stitches. So let me pop that in there. I'm gonna find something bright and, well, purple. I don't have a lot of purple going down, so we'll use purple so we can see all our pieces. So I'm gonna pop a dark one in there so I can see everything. So just like with the last one we just did, we're gonna do our first step is gonna be placement right on our stabilizer, and that's gonna give us our outline for our entire backing piece of vinyl that goes over the whole design. I know, I wanna see one strawberries too. I love a little heart. So now we're onto our candy. All right, so that is what we're putting our backing vinyl down. It's gonna be kind of like just what we did with the heart. So not applique pieces yet, but just our backing pieces down. We'll go, I don't know, do I wanna go? No, I wanna be kind of off kilter, so we'll go that way. All right, so I'm covering all of those stitches up with the vinyl. It's gonna be the base of the design. Pop that back in. And now we're running the placement stitches for our first applique piece. That's gonna be the center of your candy, so that circle. So this is just placement stitches for that. All right, so this is where we are. So we have our placement stitches down for our like center of the candy there. So now I'm gonna plot my vinyl. That's gonna be the applique portion for that center piece right over top, covering all those stitches. My applique pieces here that I've cut out are huge because I'm lazy and I just cut them out that way. You don't have to make them this big. As long as the vinyl itself covers all of your stitches, you were fine. I just didn't feel like measuring it and wanted them ready ahead of time, so I just cut some big pieces down. So don't feel like yours have to be this much bigger than the applique pieces. It doesn't. As long as it covers your stitches, you're fine. All right, so now we're gonna tack down that centerpiece vinyl for our first applique piece. I know, cotton candy diamond dust. I have this one, and I think I have the other color, but I can't remember. But it seemed like this piece of candy was going to be made in that color vinyl, so that's what we're going with. All right, so now we have our first piece here that is tacked down. So the same thing we've been doing, and now we're gonna trim this excess vinyl away. Grab your little applique scissors. I'll try and see how close I can keep you on camera there. Again, I like to cut away from myself using like towards my non-dominant hand with applique scissors. I just find it works best for me that I can get close without cutting through my stitches. Just kind of turn it as you go. Again, you can always go a little bit bigger and then go back in and clean up later. You don't have to get it perfect on your first go round. And this again is way easier if you're cutting at a table, but I'm trying to keep you from going back and forth, so we're making it work here on my little machine bed here. So there is where we are. If you're happy with that, awesome. If not, if there's an area that you want to trim up a little closer, go ahead and do that. Got this little piece over here on the side that I want to get a little closer on. It should be good. All right, so plop that back in your machine. The way that I have most of my appliques set up, excuse me, the summer cold, is I typically do all the applique pieces down first before I start doing satin stitches, just so you're not actually cutting into satin stitches as you're going. It also saves you on some thread changes because, again, with these placements and tack downs for your applique pieces, color does not matter. Just keep the same color in as long as you can see it contrasting on your vinyl for when you cut. So our next step here is the two side pieces of our candy, just our placement. I'm gonna run that. Excuse me. Carol, quick, you got time. Go get some more wine. I need a cough drop. Summer colds are the worst. I'm not even like that sick. It's just, you know, it's like when you're in the summer and you're like, oh, I have a cold. Where did it even come from? I haven't been around anybody. My kids are out of school. I don't know where I got this. And it's just really annoying me right now. All right, so here's where we are now. We have our placement stitches for our little wrapper sides there. And we're gonna grab our vinyl. You can do one big piece if you want and just cut that way, or you could do two small pieces, like whatever you wanna do, it does not matter. I'm just gonna do one piece to cover both, but this is a good option with smaller appliques. If you've got really teeny tiny pieces of vinyl or fabric that you've been hanging on to, these are good ways to use those up too. But I'm lazy, we're using one piece and we're gonna rock it out anyway. So go ahead and plop your vinyl on top there, and we're gonna tack that down. Yeah, Michelle, the Kais are my favorite applique scissors. I just wish, so they last about 6 months for me, with pretty consistent use before they start dulling. But I just keep replacing them because they're awesome. This is where we are. We have our 2 end pieces here. We're going to cut those out, same way we've been doing. I like to separate the pieces first before I go. It just makes it easier. Just kind of cut across the middle if you use one big piece. That way you've got some play with the vinyl as you're cutting. But same thing. You're an old hat at this now, right? Lots of applique cutting tonight. And we got some different shapes to work with, so it's good practice. Again, this is much easier if you take it to a table and don't try and wedge it under your machine, but all right, and see how I've got a lot like longer edges here? That's when I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean those up on that second pass. And that's where those tiny tips come in handy too on applique scissors, is that you can get in there on those pieces and clean those up. And honestly, they'll probably be covered, but I just get paranoid, so I trim them. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing over on the other half of our candy here. And I'm really short, and so I'm like trying to peek over the top, but I feel like I'm doing a blind spot here. I have little legs and a short torso. So I feel like I need a booster seat here. All right. All right. There's our second piece, and there's a couple pieces I'm going to go in and just clean up a little bit too before we stick it back on. Right there. I'm going to trim that up. Actually, I think we're good. So just do a quick look at it again before you pop it back on. Make sure you're cool with all those edges. You got close enough as you can get without cutting the stitching. And in vinyl, it's a little more forgiving. If you accidentally snip those stitches, it's not really a big deal in vinyl, 9 times out of 10. It's the fabric you gotta watch out for. All right, so I'm cool with that. So we're gonna pop that back on. And now we're gonna do the satin for the little ends, the wrappers here, and then we'll do the center applique. So let's do, what's the most obnoxiously bright pink I have? That's not gonna do. No. I knew I have a good pink for this. Maybe not. We'll just do a darker pink. We'll just do a darker pink. I think I put way too much thought into thread colors sometimes. because I do like my vinyl to match the thread too on the outline. That's just me. It doesn't have to. I just like for it to. I know. So Kelly, normally like I flip the live. So like there's like a setting on the live that I can flip the camera so that it's like in reverse for you, so that it's not backwards. But, and this is the first time I haven't done it, but it's like backwards how it records. So I think I'm like leaning over to the right to be in the camera, and I'm not. I'm like way out here. So it's like, well, it's just be backwards today, because then I know where the camera is. I'm not trying to guess what side I'm coming in. Left and right is hard enough for me as is. Been trying to remember it like mirrored. It does not work well for me. And I got like, I do this like sewing subscription box for garments that I've like done off and on. So I'm like, I'm gonna sew more garments. I don't, but I collect the boxes. And one of like the little trinkets they sent in one of the last boxes was a scissor sharpener. You guys, I can't even figure out this scissor sharpener. I don't know what's wrong with me. It should be pretty easy to figure out, and yet I struggled. I struggled. I'm just not meant to use certain tools, I guess. I need a brighter pink thread is what I need. The bright one I have is like a coral color, and that's not coral. It's like, I need like a neon hot pink. Carrie, I'm glad I'm not alone. I can't figure it out. That's exactly what I do. I have 5 or 6 pairs floating around. I do take like my nicer like fabric shears that I have from sewing. I have like 2 pairs that are really nice, and I do take those in to be professionally sharpened. It's like $10. But the rest of them, all like the cheaper ones and the applique scissors, I just replace them. And I don't want to mess up my nice fabric shears by trying to use the scissor sharpener. So I tried in this really cheap pair of Fiskars that I had that are just dead, and it did not work out. Yeah, I don't like the pink I chose for the outline of that, but that's a me problem. Oh, that's nice seeing the applique one sharpened too, because I have the Tula like duckbill applique scissors, and those are nice. I just don't like them as much as I like my Kai scissors, my Kai applique scissors. But eventually those are going to dull too, and those were not cheap. Those were more than the Kais are. And to be honest, I'm super lazy, so it takes me 5 seconds to order a pair on Amazon for $15. I'm gonna do that before I actually like get dressed and like go out somewhere and pay money to get them sharpened, because that's who I am as a person. I'm honest about who I am. We are almost done with the second part of the satin on the sides of the candy for the wrapper. And this seems like it takes a while too, because of all the steps we need to cut out and trim. And you'll see when we add the shaker bits too. The actual stitching is only 14 minutes, so it's still a pretty quick stitch out. So don't be deterred if you're watching this. This is taking forever. Just as we're stopping and kind of going through stuff, the more you make them, you'll fly through them. So that satin is done on our wrapper. So this is where we are. So all those edges are covered by that satin. Now we're gonna run the satin stitches to go around the outside of this. And a question I get asked is, why on shakers do I have you put the clear on after the applique? It's because most clear vinyls are not gonna hold up to your satin stitches. Like I was talking about the novelty ones earlier, and it's gonna perforate on you, and you're gonna have that clear vinyl tearing away from that area where your shakers are. So we're always gonna do the clear vinyl last. It's our last step before we add the backing. So add that back on. We're gonna do our green outline for the center of the candy. Yeah, I learned about the clear vinyl perforating kind of the hard way, so we don't do that. And you'd be surprised, I've gotten some emails from people who are like, aren't always very nice about that it's wrong because I'm doing the clear like after the applique piece. I'm like, it's not wrong, but the clear vinyl can tear away on you. So I really do it on purpose. I promise it's not a mistake. It would be nice if you could put it on before, but then you got to deal with, you know, trying to keep the shaker bits out of any area of your satin that you're going. So it just works better all around if we do it last. And why this is going, a quick word about your clear vinyl. I know I talked about the gauge, but also I take a second before I add clear vinyl to it to kind of like wipe up any fingerprints that are going to be on the inside. So that way you've got any fingerprints or lint or whatever, you get that off. So I get like an eyeglass cloth, or even honestly I'm wearing sweatpants, just wipe down that inside piece. Some people will also say you can add a dryer sheet and kind of give it a quick swipe over the back. That helps with the static from like glitter and stuff sticking to it. If you choose to do that, just be careful that when you kind of rub with the dryer sheet that you're not leaving streaks on the dryer sheet. I typically use bigger pieces for the shaker so it doesn't stick quite as much. I like the bigger pieces. The glitter can stick, especially if you use like the craft glitter. It's that really kind of fine stuff that gets everywhere. Would all get everywhere, but you know what I mean. That old stuff we used to like glue and dump glitter on, that stuff is a mess. So I kind of shy away from it because it will stick more and you won't get that same effect. I like to use clay slices, shaped glitter, or just even like chunky glitter. And I try to do a different variety of things in them too. And I'll show you when we get to that too, because how they fall and shape, it works a little nicer to have different like size and shapes of things in that shaker. Yeah, I like Fimo slices too, Carol. Basically, any of that stuff that you can use that isn't like that, like plastically, like real thin glitter is gonna work just fine. You could even use beads, like the real like seed beads and the real small, tiny beads in a pinch too. But I think most of my stuff are like the Fimo slices, to be honest. And you can find some of those on Amazon too. I know Michael's has had some in the craft section too, like the shaped clay slices or Fimo slices. I'm gonna say I couldn't tell the difference between Fimo and clay. Are they the same thing? I kind of think they are. Oh, and the nail stuff too. The only thing with the nail stuff is just check the size on it. Because I did order some things that like nail art stuff, and I didn't expect how small they were because I don't read. And other stuff I've got for nail stuff was great. Like Happy Kawaii Supply is like my favorite place to get this because you can get a decent amount in small packages to do several shakers, not have to commit to a huge different package of things. Oh, Carol, there you go. So you got some of that nail stuff too. All right, so here's where we are. We are getting ready to add our clear vinyl. So we have our wrapper down, our centerpiece here, and we're gonna grab our clear vinyl. And again, I just take a second and just kind of wipe the back of it. You can wipe the fingerprints off the front once you get it on, but just give it a second to kind of wipe it down. Before we place this, I'm gonna have a set of placement stitches, and that's gonna go directly over where this is gonna be. So once you go to the next step, just go ahead and keep the same color you have in there for your centerpiece there. And I'm not even locked in my hoop, so that's not working. And that's gonna run a placement stitch for you to know where your clear vinyl goes. On some of my shaker designs, I don't have a placement stitches for clear vinyl because it's gonna cover the entire design. But on designs that only some sections are gonna have a shaker bit, it's gonna have that placement for you. And you can honestly skip it if you want to, but it's just a one quick stitch around to show you where to place it. All right, so with it down, we've wiped down the back of our clear vinyl. I'm gonna put that now, you can see this placement stitches there. I'm gonna put that down directly on top. And this next step is going to stitch around probably about 75% of this outline here and leave us an opening to dump in our clear bits. So go ahead and pop that on. Go ahead and keep the same thread color in there so it blends in nicely for you. Hi, Amy. I haven't messed up yet, Amy, so we're in good shape. I love you too, Amy. We've got what, how many days? Like less than 2 weeks, right? Before Jamindy? All right, so now I have that area stitched down and tacked on that vinyl. I'm gonna make you see for this next part, I'm gonna have to swing you over to the table so I can show you how to get the bits in. It's gonna be too fiddly to do it here. So kind of divert your eyes. Look away, look away. I'm gonna swing you over and get you upright a little bit. There we go. So you can see what I'm doing. Let me grab here. I'm gonna grab my iPad so I can see any comments that pop up. All right, we are here. Okay, so here we are. We've got it stitched around all but that small section right there, and that's where we're gonna fill the bits. So, like I was saying before, I like to have a variety of different shapes and sizes on fillers. I feel like it gives it a nice effect for the shaker, so it's all not the same weight. You can really use anything that's gonna fit in there. I just shy away from that fine glitter because it's static and things like that. It just sticks and doesn't shake as well. That's up to you. So I have some clay slices I'm gonna use, some clay sprinkles, and then I got this box of these like little, I don't know, they're not even beads, these little round, I don't know what they're called, little guys here. And this whole box was super cheap on Amazon, and it's a nice size. I think these are 2mm, like holeless beads, maybe they call them. And they kind of help keep that clear vinyl pulled from your backing vinyl to help things kind of shake too. So I like those. So before we get started with that, you want to grab some chopsticks or knitting needles, whatever you have. Find your hole. Go ahead and stick something in there, and it's going to create like a little funnel for you. Okay. I wish I grabbed my chopsticks, but I grabbed these purple things, but we're going to make it work. So now you have this little area here. It's going to help give you an area to funnel those in. I'm going to start, and I kind of like layer them when I go to. I know, find your hole, Kelly. I know, as I was saying and I realized it, how it sounded, but here we are. All right, so I like to layer as I go. So if I'm going to use, say, 3 different things, I might put a little bit in, like a pinch, then add a pin to the second one, pitch the third one until I feel like I have enough in that I want. There is no right or wrong answer. Follow your heart with filling it up. I'm going to start here with these little clay slice and the jiggers here. I'm going to throw those in. I've got my little funnel here going on. That way I can kind of help hold it up and I can help kind of guide those in too. So I got those in place. I'm going to give them a little spread there at the bottom. Go to whatever your next thing is going to be. I've got some pretty little pink ones here of these I'm going to throw in. So same thing, just fill them in. Got your little chopstickies. There's a couple different things there. Kind of give them a mix around as I'm going to kind of distribute them a little bit. And then I'm going to add some slices, or some sprinkles rather. Doing the same thing. Make my little funnel. Get it right in there. Drop a bunch on your table in the process. Get those in. Then I might add a little bit more of the clay slices. And again, just kind of fill until what you're happy with. There's no right or wrong answer. If you put too much in there, it won't shake as well as you want it to be. I just kind of eyeball it to where I think it's going to shake well. It's easier to add more than it is to take it out. So kind of start with a small amount and then figure out what it is. Is that good? Do I want to add more? Oop, and my little chopsticky fell out. All right, so now that I have that in there, I'm gonna give it a quick kind of like just mix it around. So they're all kind of incorporated, so you don't have all your like little beads at the bottom, all your slices on one section, all your sprinkles on top. So I'm kind of happy with that. I feel like once I get it in there, that's a good amount. It's gonna give you a nice shake effect. So once you have it all in there, it's where you want it to be and you are happy with it. Oops, and knock them down a little bit. Sometimes some of these clay slices will kind of go perpendicular on you. So just take your little tool and go in and just knock them back down. So here's where we are. You can add glitter if you want it to, whatever you want to add. So here's where we are. I am going to swing you back around and make you seasick again so that we can stitch up this little whole area here and then add our backing. So sorry. Oh, see, look, you're going upside down. And I've got you here. This thing is like not wanting to cooperate now with where I was. Stay there. Oh my gosh. It's like wanting to tilt. Don't tilt. Don't tilt. You're tilting. I'm going to try and fix it because now you're all sideways. I know it worked before. Sorry, I should have left you where you were. Did I get it? Okay, I'm here. Sorta, kinda. Sorry. All right, we're there. We're in business. I think I got you there. All right, so this last section here is we're just gonna add, we're gonna stitch that little hole closed, our little filling hole. You know all the tips about dumping stuff in with a rhinestone tray. I just kind of dump stuff and make a mess, but that would be the smart way to go, is to get like a small tray to put stuff in. All right, so now all we have to do is trim up all this excess clear vinyl that we had. So grab your applique scissors, just come in. You don't want to get too close, but you don't have to be quite as exact with this because honestly the clear is going to blend in. So just take a second, kind of cut around, get your excess off there. And you can even clean that up later too. If you have some edges maybe you didn't cut as smoothly, they're a little jagged, you can go back in later. But let's go ahead and clean it up now before we add our backing, so that way our clear vinyl isn't tacked down with the rest of our design. You probably can't see very well on camera, but I am trimming the clear, I promise. All right, so here we are. That's all the hard parts done. So we're here, we're in business. We're gonna go ahead and flip this over so we can add our backing here. Oh, and Kelly's got links for you too. I need to get on there and get one. All right, so I've got my backing on here. Go ahead and secure that in place. I like to tape it down. You can live fast and loose and just hold it on there and hope for the best. You do you, but I am too scared for that, so I'm gonna secure it in place, pop it on, and I'm gonna switch to a pink for my outline since there's more pink in that the vinyl than there is that mint, so I'll grab this pink. So we'll do our final outline stitching here. Nancy, it doesn't matter. So the candy is the only shaker, but they're both appliques. So you won't be able to do the keep looking as across the room. Nancy, you won't be able to turn the strawberry into a shaker because it doesn't have the placements for that. But you don't have to do the shaker on this either, so it really doesn't matter. I'm just giving you kind of the extra steps here to do any of the shakers. So if you want to just do this with an applique, you could just skip those steps for the shaker on the candy. Does that make sense? There should just be, in the files, there should just be one bag tag file in all the different formats for the strawberry, and there should be the same for the candy. It should just be one in all the different formats for the candy. You know what? So I think they're probably the same. I know that when Joe uploaded the files initially to the bundle, I had them sent to him in a folder that said like week 3, and he took them out and loaded them in the files as individuals, which was hard to kind of keep track of. So I asked him to go back in and fix it and make sure that these two were in a folder that said week 2. So if you still have them somewhere in your files, it's not under the week 3 folder, it's the same design. It's just, I tried to get it organized a little bit better. So it's not as confusing, but yeah, it's totally the same design in both. All right, so we are here with the candy. I'm gonna swing you over again, make you seasick. I'm sorry. Sorry. All right, we're back. Maybe turn up. Okay, here we are. All right, so here is our candy. Here is our strawberry. So just like we have in every other week so far, we're going to go ahead and pop those out of our hoop. And we're going to trim those up. Let's get the tape off the back of these. Maybe. All right, get my good scissors. Try and clean up my mess for a hot second. And we're just going to trim those up. I like to stay about a 1/4 inch or so away from the stitching. It's easier for me to keep it straight. Remember, when you cut, you're going to turn your vinyl, not your scissors, to get a nice smooth cut. So there is our strawberry. I'm going to do the same thing on our candy. Try to stay about a 1/4 inch away or so from the line of stitching. The closer you get, the harder it is to stay straight, and the more your mistakes will show up. So until you get really confident stitching, it's easier if you make your outline a little bit bigger. Also, if you're like a gorilla like me that has like no fine motor skills with scissors, then don't get too close. All right, and there is our candy shaker. So I am actually not gonna install the eyelets on camera since we've done that now 2 weeks in a row, but I do wanna show you some different types of the glitter and resin that I have. But I figured out the crocodile, Amy, isn't that exciting? I thought it was super exciting. So let's see if I can actually do it like neatly. Am I in the right one? I think so. Aha! Although that was a smaller punch, but let's go to the actual right size punch I'm supposed to be at. But Amy sent me this crocodile like 2 weeks ago, and I didn't get around to messing with it. And then I started, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty easy, but I had to watch a video to figure out how to use it. And I usually cut my jumps and stuff before I punch a hole, but now I'm rushing. My little crocodile. Holes punched. It does install the eyelets too, but I am going to skip that part because I wanted to show you. I have boxes and boxes and boxes of glitter, and I'm going to show you. I know I talked about it, but what I mean by some of the different kinds of glitter. Alright, so what we used in the candy shaker, let's see a little bit. What we used in here were clay slices like this, and they're pretty thin, and I like, those are my favorite things to add in. But I also like to use like shaped kind of chunky glitter and like mixes, like there's like these guys here. You can see nice kind of size to that, and they're not real flimsy and thin, so they don't get stuck to the sides as much. I need this like kind of shaped glitter compared to, if I even have, I think I might. I do. This is the stuff that people think of with glitter. It's like this really fine stuff that like comes in, if you can see, am I too close? It comes in like the craft section. It's really thin, it gets everywhere, it gets stuck, and it will absolutely stick to your clear vinyl. So I like to shy away from this and opt for the clay slices. If I really want glitter, I'm gonna get this shape stuff, which I like. So most of the stuff I got here is from Happy Kawaii Supplies. These little bags of glitter, she sells in different sizes, but if you wanted to get like, just start it, these are super cheap for these small bags, and this will do so much for you. Also, Target dollar spot, sometimes you can find, they have these little glass bottles. I think they're meant just to be decorative, but I like what's inside of them. They have different shape things there too. I found those at Target. I think this might have even been from Michael's. I haven't opened it, but they're little like mini gingerbread cookies. So like you can even get bigger pieces too, like these soccer balls. They're much bigger than a bead and they're flat, and those are absolutely fine to fit in those shakers. I also have on the website, let me grab my box. I didn't much of these for Halloween, but I've done a few more. These little mini felties, and I have the cutest little mini felty design and shaker coming up in the mystery bundle. It is a little mason jar with little firefly mini felties. It's adorable. But these mini felties are great too, because you could add those in your shakers and then do the rest filler with other stuff. So I've got a bunch of those on the website too, but that's a nice size for really any of the shakers here, unless I don't think I have any shakers that are too small, but these are about, they're a little under an inch, maybe quite about an inch, but they're good fillers too if you want to throw some stuff in. Maybe I should do some sports mini felties to put in some of these. That would be fun. But also, if you want to get these beads, I know I showed you the pack I got on Amazon, but I got these too, these small little beads. I forget what she calls them on Happy Kawaii Supplies, but they're nice to kind of add some dimension to the shakers too. Because as you see, like it will shake. It doesn't get, I mean, some of the stuff obviously doesn't move like super free, but you can shake this stuff around and it moves, it flows. So the more you add, the less it'll flow and shake around. But just find the balance that you like on these. There's no really right or wrong on it. I'm trying to think of any other kind that I have. And I do like that you can get these little sets. This is a holiday set, but if you don't want to think about what you're going to mix yourself, you can buy these sets that have like all these different shapes and types in there, which are nice because then it's easy just to dump a little of that in and not have to think too much about it. You don't care if they shake as long as they, yeah, I do. I'm kind of a sucker for like cute shaker stuff. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Also, I've used, with mixed results, you can use Mylar, or like there's these like beads that, I think they make them for slime, but you can see how they're already kind of like sticking to that plastic bag. So I might use these kind of sparingly, but they're pretty cheap. This whole bag was like 99 cents. So that's another option. There's really not a right or wrong there, except for don't do the craft herpes glitter. This is terrible. You will not like this. So stick with chunkier stuff. Stick with clay slices, clay sprinkles, and you'll be much happier with results. And you can even buy, like I said, there's the bigger ones like the soccer balls. They have different shapes for different holidays. Kind of the possibilities are endless with this. So I love these shakers, make me happy. But I hope that was helpful. And I think that's all I have for you this week. So, oh yeah, and the crickets too. So I know there was one, I think Kelly did. I did a shaker for something and she had cut some pieces out in her cricket, which was really cute to put inside too. So you could add anything inside. So next week, honestly, I cannot remember what is it. Oh, I do remember we're doing makeup wipes and trays next week. So that'll be a pretty quick one. And you've gotten all the skills now to do those confidently. So applique, once you've gotten that down, everything else is going to be cake. So we will we'll come back next Sunday, and that will be, I'm going to have to figure out what we're going to do. I'm going to be out of town the 20th to the 24th. So we may do, it may be kind of late on the week of that week and do one on Monday instead of the Sunday, just to catch up since I'll be out of town. But I'll figure it all out and let you guys know. Thanks for being here, and I hope I'm having a fab week, and I will see you next Sunday. And please show me your stitch out too. I want to see them.